If your snake plant has looked exactly the same for the last year, the same height, the same number of leaves, nothing new pushing up from the soil, you haven't done anything wrong, and it isn't dying, it's waiting. The snake plant, also called sansevieria, or by its botanical name Dracaena trifasciata, or if you've heard it called mother-in-law's tongue, has a reputation for being indestructible. But indestructible and growing are not the same thing. By the time we're done here, you'll know what it's waiting for and why the most common advice for fixing it usually makes things worse. A snake plant that has stopped growing is one of the quietest problems a houseplant can have. Nothing dramatic happens. The leaves don't yellow, they don't fall, they don't wrinkle. The plant simply holds still, month after month. And most people assume that's just what snake plants do. Slow, undemanding, practically furniture. That assumption is where the trouble starts, because a healthy snake plant, given what it actually wants, is not slow. In the right conditions, it'll push out 2, 3, sometimes 4 new leaves in a single growing season. When yours produces nothing for a year or more, it isn't being lazy. It's telling you that one of the conditions it depends on has quietly gone missing. The first one, and the most common, is light. A snake plant will survive in a dim corner, and that's the whole reason it ended up in so many offices and hallways and windowless bathrooms. But surviving and growing are two different things. In low light, the plant does something sensible. It stops spending energy it can't afford. Growth is expensive, and without enough light to power it, the plant just declines to try. It stays alive, stays green, and stays exactly the same size. People see that it isn't dying and decide the spot is fine. The plant would tell you otherwise, if it could. Move it somewhere brighter, ideally a spot receiving at least 100 foot candles, which in practical terms means a place where you could comfortably read a book without turning on a lamp, and within a few feet of a window that actually gets sun and not just daylight, and the whole calculation changes. There's enough energy coming in to justify new leaves, so the plant starts making them. The second reason is the pot. And this one surprises people, because it runs against everything we're taught about being kind to plants. We assume a bigger pot is a gift. More room for the roots, more soil, more water held in reserve. For most of what grows on a windowsill, that's roughly true. For a snake plant, it's the opposite. Snake plants spread through the soil by rhizome, an underground stem that creeps horizontally and sends up new shoots, and they grow best when those rhizomes are crowded. In the wild, they spread through poor, rocky ground by filling it completely, and they seem to grow more readily when the roots are pressing against something. Drop one into a large pot and it does something you can't see from the outside. It stops working on leaves and spends its energy filling all that empty space underground with roots first. Above the soil, nothing appears to happen, sometimes for a very long time. So the well-meaning repotting into a generous new container, the thing you did to help, is often the exact reason the plant went still. There's a second cost to the oversized pot, and it's slower and more dangerous. All that extra soil holds water the roots aren't using, and it stays damp far longer than it should. A snake plant sitting in soil that never fully dries is a snake plant heading toward root rot, caused by fungal pathogens like Pythium and Fusarium that thrive in waterlogged conditions, and rotting roots grow nothing at all. Which brings us to water, the third piece, and the one most people get backwards. The instinct, when a plant isn't growing, is to give it more of everything. More water, more attention, a splash of fertilizer to wake it up. With a snake plant, more water is an encouragement. It's the fastest way to push a stalled plant into a real crisis. This plant is built for drought. It stores water inside its leaves, and that's why they're thick and firm, and it expects long, dry stretches between drinks, the way its ancestors lived through dry seasons broken by the occasional heavy rain. When you water it on a schedule, every Sunday, whether the soil needs it or not, you're keeping the roots wetter than they were ever designed to be. The plant doesn't respond to that by growing. It responds by protecting itself, and eventually by rotting. The fix is unglamorous. Water it only when the soil is dry several inches down, and check with your finger before you reach for the watering can. In summer, that might be once a month. In winter, when the plant isn't growing at all, it can be even less. A snake plant that's watered less often, in a snug pot, in a bright spot, will almost always start growing again on its own. You don't have to make it grow. You just have to stop doing the things that we're quietly telling it not to. There's one more thing worth knowing, and it's the reason patience matters here. Even after you've corrected all of this, a snake plant doesn't hurry. New growth comes from the base, a pale spear pushing up through the soil, and it can take weeks to appear and months to reach full height. Whether you have the classic Laurentii variety with its yellow-edged leaves, one of the compact bird's nest types, or any of the dozens of other cultivars, this is true across the board. So if you move your plant to a brighter window today, don't check it tomorrow and decide nothing changed. The plant is slow to react because it's slow by nature, but slow is not the same as stopped, and the difference between the two is almost always something you can fix. And once it is healthy and settled, a happy snake plant will eventually send out pups, small new plants on their own rhizomes that emerge at the base, and you can divide those off to propagate new plants entirely. That's a sign the plant isn't just surviving anymore, it's comfortable enough to expand. Once you've seen it a few times, you stop reading a still snake plant as a healthy one that happens to be resting. You start reading it as a plant with something to say. Usually it's asking for more light, a smaller pot, or less water. Give it the one it's missing, and it goes back to doing the thing it was always capable of.